Imagine you've just moved to a new city. You don't know anyone in your new city, but you moved here because you got a new job. And quite frankly, you don't know much about the city that you just moved to, but you found the perfect apartment, which in this economy is rare, so you're optimistic. But every time you try to meet one of your neighbors, the door slams. You don't get it. You had friends in college. You were popular in high school. Meeting friends as an adult should be easy, right? Instead, you're lonely, you're isolated, and the community that you thought you'd have just isn't there.
Now you've entered into your routine, but it's just work to home, to work to home, to work to home, and you're bored. You're in desperate need of a third space, a space where you can create, a space where you can ask questions, a space where you can meet other people, a space where you can figure out the other parts of yourself. But the more that you look around your new city, the more that you think maybe you've made a mistake. Maybe you should have moved to a larger city. Maybe that would give you things to do and a community. But the truth is that the community that you're looking for is not tied to the size of the city. It's tied to our collective willingness to be vulnerable and learn from one another. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Shawanda, and we are the founders of The Chattery, a community-centered learning collective.
Thanks. You didn't pause for that. And today we're going to talk about how lifelong learning can transform a community. But first things first, Shawanda.
Yes.
Why learning? Why not education?
Okay, that's a great question. In order for us to truly understand how learning can be transformative, we have to start at the beginning of our educational journeys. I went to Franklin High School in Franklin, Virginia, and I'm fairly certain that maybe a city of Virginia you've never heard of before, but that's okay. Luckily, it's not pertinent to the story. And although I was a really good student, I had to study, and I mean study, to get those good grades. I wasn't naturally interested in or good at geometry or calculus for that matter. But no matter my level of interest in these subjects, I was told that these were classes I had to take. If I wanted to graduate from Franklin High School, I had to take those classes. If I wanted to apply and to attend college, I needed to take those classes. If I simply wanted to move on to the next phase of my life, I had to take these classes. So now we fast forward 20-something years later, the number is not important, and today I get to learn simply for the sake of learning. And you might ask yourself, well, how is that? Well, it's because I am no longer tied to an education system. Today, I get to learn things that genuinely pique my interest rather than learning things I'm told should be interesting to me.
So let's break down what we mean by an educational system. Education is the process of facilitating learning. It's going to school, it's taking exams, it's passing exams, it's failing exams. Yes. It's prescribed to everyone in the exact same way, so much that it's cross-stitched on a pillow somewhere. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Learning, however, is an active process, where education typically teaches you the theory first, and then you practice it. Learning flips it on its head and gives you practical application.
Okay, let's pause for a quick second. What exactly do you mean by practical application?
Okay, sure. So, you like tennis, right?
I love tennis. Thank you so much for asking.
How could I have known? So, you could read all the books that have ever been written about tennis. You could study the theory, you could study the science, you could watch the Williams sisters dominate, and we all should. You could listen to the pros, you could do 1,000 things, but if you never pick up a racket, do you truly know how to play tennis?
Okay, what I'm hearing you say is that if I want to be good at tennis or any activity for that matter, I need to tap into my curiosities and experience it firsthand.
Exactly. In order to learn, you must be curious. And then once you experience it firsthand, or in this case, backhand, okay. You can dive into the theory and learn more.
Okay, well, while I have you here and while I have a captive audience, I'm going to let you in on a little known fact about me and a time that I did tap into my curiosities. When I was in high school, Franklin High School, I actually did join the tennis team. I've always been naturally curious about playing the sport. I watched all the greats play on TV and I thought to myself, self, you can do that too. But please don't get too excited because let me tell you, there is nothing like teenage delusion to keep you motivated, but humble you so greatly at the same time. The competitive nature of joining a team and playing for awards truly took the fun out of playing for me. So I did what any emotional teenager would do, and I quit, much to my parents' dismay. But you'll be happy to know that today I have rediscovered my love for tennis by taking tennis lessons and casually and honestly not that great playing simply for the sake of playing tennis. No awards, no accolades besides trying to win a match against my husband. It's sort of like learning for the sake of learning, right? These activities and these subjects are much more enjoyable for me now that I'm no longer tied to a sports team or an education system.
And that's really exactly how it should be, learning for the sake of learning. So I grew up in the educational system, and I know that everyone in here is like, yes, Jennifer, we all did. But bear with me. Both my parents were teachers, 2 of my grandparents were teachers, 2 of my great-grandparents were teachers. Education is probably a strand of my DNA. And despite being so intrinsically linked to that education system, my parents always instilled in my brother and I to look outside of the classroom for other opportunities to learn. Whether it was joining clubs, creating art, reading books, they always believed in us, even when, quite frankly, my art was terrible. But now that I'm a mother myself and I have a 3-year-old, I'm trying to encourage him to also be excited about learning and to figure out exactly what he wants to learn about. And the only thing is that as with any toddler, when you encourage their curiosities, their favorite question becomes why? And I'm not talking about Simon Sinek's Start With Why or some deeper why. I'm talking about just questions like, why do I have to wear shoes? Why do I have to eat breakfast? Why are we late every day? And despite those questions being trivial, sometimes he'll ask me a question and I simply do not know the answer. And I find myself starting to say, well, bud, that's just the way it always has been done. And that is not something I would normally say. And he's made me realize that as an adult, we have accepted the status quo. We forget to ask why, we forget to question the systems. And quite frankly, as adults, we should not stop asking why.
But why, Jennifer?
See, perfect example. So on a planet that is 4.5 billion years old, billion with a B, we are just toddlers ourselves. We can't and don't know everything. And that's why lifelong learning isn't optional. And of course, when we say lifelong learning, we obviously mean your entire life. It's in the name. We also mean life-wide. We mean learning from friends, family, colleagues, community members, strangers, not just school or a formal learning institution.
Yeah, a true lifelong learning community offers something for everyone, no matter where you are in life and certainly no matter your age. If we want to build active and engaging learning communities, we have to focus on the process of learning and not the system of education. Did you know that lifelong learning can keep our brains healthy? And who wouldn't want a healthy brain? Studies have also shown that learning a new skill, especially as we get older, can sharpen our memories and it improves our brain. And I'm so sorry to have to be the one to tell you this on this TEDx stage, but we are all getting older. But another bonus and benefit of learning new skills is that when you learn those new skills, it releases dopamine. So that dopamine gets released and it keeps you excited, it keeps you motivated, and it keeps you engaged and ready to learn more.
And another fun fact is that learning gets on your nerves, literally. When you learn, you produce myelin, which makes your brain more connected. Myelin runs on the outside of your nerves and helps to send and receive information to different parts of your body. So when you learn, your brain works faster and more efficiently.
Okay, I know what you all may be thinking, what in the world does this have to do with transforming communities? But just hold on, we're gonna tell you.
So first of all, classrooms are support networks. Lifelong learning is rooted in community and finding friends. Learning, particularly for older adults, can help combat loneliness. And studies show that learning, especially through the arts, reduces symptoms of depression and increases quality of life.
Lifelong learning also transforms communities by making them more innovative and more productive by constantly offering opportunities for us to create and discover new abilities and ideas. The truth is, we live in a knowledge-based society where change is constant and it's inevitable. People who embrace lifelong learning, those of us who are constantly learning new skills, are better equipped to deal with the demands of societal changes. Lifelong learning can also strengthen the economy. The more knowledge and the more skills that we as community members develop, the better positioned we are to succeed and survive in unstable economies.
Another way that lifelong learning is transformative is through curiosity. And we can attest that curiosity is the key to empathy. When you're an empathetic person, you share in someone else's emotional experience. You're not feeling sorry for them. This isn't sympathy. You are getting to know them on a deeper level and you're relating to them. And we've seen firsthand in our classroom that empathy is created in a shared curiosity of a new subject.
Now, as you all begin to explore what your lifelong learning journey looks like, and we hope that you do, there are a few things we'd like you to remember. The first is that you get to design your own lifelong learning journey. We are no longer tied to systems that dictate what we should and shouldn't learn. If you want to be a better artist, try an art class. If you want to focus more on personal development, do it. The reality is lifelong learning is something we should all experience because we have an obligation to ourselves to continue learning throughout our entire lives.
And in addition to that obligation, we want you to remember that you have the right to continue learning, and no one can take that away from you.
Okay, now if you would, imagine you just moved to a new city. You don't know anyone in your new city, and quite frankly, you didn't do that much research, so you don't know that much about the city that you just moved to. But, and most importantly, you found the perfect apartment, which, as we know in this economy, is rare, so you're optimistic. And this time, as you're moving into your perfect apartment, you meet your neighbors, and they invite you to take a workshop together. Now, sure, you're a little hesitant and nervous because they technically are strangers to you. You do not know these people, but you say yes because you're excited about the possibility of meeting new friends and bonding over the act of learning something new.
And remember, discomfort is not a barrier to learning. Discomfort is learning. So the next time that you get invited by a stranger to take a class, take it. The next time that you're curious about a subject, explore it. Not because you have to, but because you deserve to. And that's how we can transform communities, one lifelong learner at a time. Thank you.